Welcome back to Compliance Conversations. Today we're really digging into the key insights from Qualio CEO Rob Fenton's talk at LSI 2025. Our mission here is to understand what the panelists, really think AI will bring to the life science industry, especially medtech. We want to cut through all the AI buzzwords and get to the practical stuff, its uses, its impact.
Yeah, that session at LSI, it brought together some really sharp people from different angles to talk about exactly that. So we heard from Rob, obviously, CEO of Qualio, that quality and compliance platform for medtech, and Rashna, a VC investing in med devices and AI in healthcare, plus Jim, who runs a company building a healthcare cloud for, I think they called them citizen developers.
Okay, so quite a mix. Engineering, VC money, big tech infrastructure,
Hmm.
all looking at AI in life sciences.
Exactly, and you could tell it was timely. They did a quick poll at the start.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and about a third of the audience said they were already implementing AI.
Wow. Okay, so not just theory then. People are actually doing it.
Right. It wasn't just pie in the sky talk. It felt grounded.
Good. So let's unpack some of the big ideas. One of the first things that came up was sort of, how do we even frame where AI is right now?
Yes. Jim had a pretty good analogy for that. He suggested thinking about large language models, LLMs, like early operating systems.
Okay, like early Windows or something.
Kind of, yeah. Think about those first versions. The potential was obvious, but the real change happened when useful software started appearing on those systems.
Word processors, spreadsheets,
Oh.
the things people actually use day to day.
Precisely. So his point was, now that we have these foundational AI models easily available, the real focus is shifting. It's moving to building practical, valuable applications on top of them, the application layer.
Right, makes sense. It wasn't enough just having the computer. You needed the tools. So they see AI and life sciences going the same way towards actual applications solving specific problems.
That's the idea. And Rashna added something really important there. She stressed that AI isn't, a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Context matters.
Hugely. How you apply AI really depends on the specific problem, the environment. Like she mentioned remote or off-grid settings, there you might need smaller language models that run locally on the device itself. Edge computing, basically.
Yeah, you can't rely on a constant cloud connection out there. A device needs to work on its own.
And she also reminded everyone, which is a good point, that while generative AI feels new, AI itself, especially predictive AI, that's been kicking around in healthcare labs for ages.
Doing things behind the scenes.
Exactly. Medical imaging analysis, things like that. Stuff was already in use before the big public splash.
Okay, now this is where I thought it got really interesting. They started talking about jobs, how AI might change roles in the industry. Rashna had a particularly, forward-looking take for VCs.
She did, didn't she? Thinking about AI getting better at automating those repetitive analysis tasks, she basically suggested we could see a pretty big impact on analyst roles, maybe even principal roles, inside VC firms soon. Yeah. She figured the top-level decisions would probably stay human, but the grunt work, the analysis underneath, that could be heavily AI-assisted or maybe even largely automated. She even said her firm is actively looking at using generative AI to make their due diligence faster.
That's quite a prediction. It really shows how AI could reshape even these pretty complex knowledge-based jobs within the whole life science world. And that kind of led to a bigger point about how companies should even approach bringing AI in.
Right. Rob from Qualio really hammered this home. He said the main challenge has changed. It's less about the AI tech itself, he thinks, that's getting easier to access, and it's more about identifying the ROI, showing real business results.
So the question isn't, can we use AI, but where does AI solve a real problem and deliver value?
Exactly. What specific issues can it fix, and how does that actually transform the business? He used Qualio as an example, how they're using AI to help med tech clients drastically speed up getting ready for regulatory submissions, cutting prep time from months down to days.
Now that's a concrete business outcome, months to days.
Right. And he also stressed, quite rightly, that adopting AI isn't just plugging in some tech, it takes real organizational change. You need training, support, helping people see it as a tool, not a threat.
That change management piece is always huge. Okay, shifting gears slightly. Rashna brought up a key question for investors. How do you tell which companies are genuinely using AI effectively versus just, jumping on the bandwagon? Due diligence must be tricky here.
Oh, absolutely. It's tough. She used biological computing as an example.
Yeah.
If you only rely on what you know from, say, traditional computing, you might completely miss the potential of something totally new, something that just wasn't possible before.
So old benchmarks might not apply.
Exactly. It means VCs need to constantly find new expertise, stay open to totally new ways of doing things. The landscape's just changing that fast.
Which connects to this whole theme of speed, right? The expectation that things will move much faster. Idea to launch, idea to revenue,
Yeah.
maybe with less cash needed up front, all thanks to AI tools.
Yes, Jim painted that picture. Much shorter development cycles, especially in health software. He talked about AI agents creating functional prototypes in like minutes.
Minutes. Wow.
Yeah. So the focus shifts away from writing massive documents up front towards just building something, getting feedback, iterating quickly. But he did add a note of caution.
Oh.
Well, while development might get super fast, the regulatory review, the audits, those might become the new slow points, the bottlenecks.
Ah. Okay. So AI speeds up the creation, but the approval process needs to catch up.
Sounds familiar. It feels like AI is making that early innovation stage more accessible, though. Quicker experiments, faster concept validation.
Definitely. And that led nicely into a really crucial discussion. Where can AI make the biggest difference in healthcare? Rachna argued pretty strongly that while the shiny objects get a lot of attention.
Not cool, visible AI application.
Right, but the real game-changer potential might be in the less glamorous stuff. The plumbing, as she called it. The foundational quality and regulatory processes. The stuff that underpins everything. The essential, but maybe invisible, work that ensures compliance, safety.
Exactly. And she pointed out how hard it can be to get budget and focus on those areas compared to, say, flashy marketing things, even though they're fundamental for patients.
That's a great point. It's often the unseen infrastructure that matters most.
And Rob backed this up. He mentioned two key things he sees in companies succeeding with AI. First, much tighter collaboration between the software folks and the scientists, working together more closely.
Break down silos.
Right. And second, a really fundamental mindset shift, moving away from thinking just about documents and starting to see data as the main valuable asset.
That makes total sense. Documents are static, looking backward. Data is dynamic, offering insights.
And Rob used Qualio's own product again, the one that speeds up compliance. It works precisely because it leverages that data-centric view, cutting FDA submission prep time, like we said, months to days, which means faster revenue for their customers.
So focusing on the data unlocks that efficiency.
Yeah. And that idea, data as the core asset, it links to Jim's concept of building an album of AI application.
An album. Like a greatest hits.
Sort of. The idea is, once a company builds a strong data foundation and some core AI muscle, they can then quickly spin out a whole suite of applications for different needs. Build out a portfolio, speed up revenue, maybe become more of a platform company.
I see. Not just one hit single, but a whole collection of valuable tools. Interesting. Okay. But all this fast innovation, especially AI models that learn and change over time, that must create headaches for regulators, right?
Yeah.
Rachna had some thoughts on that.
She really did. She asked a pretty basic but profound question. Should the same agencies that regulate traditional medical devices also handle AI-powered ones?
Good question.
On one hand, you want speed, efficiency, getting new tech to patients. But on the other, are the current rules, the current mindsets really ready for AI that constantly evolves?
The whole new ballgame.
It is, and it's clear the regulatory side is still figuring things out. It's very much developing.
So with that uncertainty, what do companies do? Rachna suggested a kind of practical market entry strategy.
Yeah, she talked about maybe launching with less pertinent but consumable AI solutions first.
Meaning?
Simpler versions, basically. Get them out there, gather real-world data, real-world evidence, while the more complex AI models are still being worked on and while the regulatory path becomes clearer.
Okay, a phased approach. Start simpler, learn, then scale up complexity.
But she was careful to add a caveat. That approach probably isn't right for all types of medical devices, especially higher-risk ones.
Of course, needs careful consideration depending on the device class. It's about balancing innovation with safety.
Exactly. It's finding that responsible path forward in a shifting landscape.
And Jim brought up another emerging area, closed-loop devices.
Right. Devices that monitor vitals and then autonomously adjust treatment or prevention.
Wow. That really underlines the need for everyone, industry, regulators to adapt. Devices are getting smarter, more independent.
And he shared a very personal story, didn't he? About his brother.
Yes, with treatment-resistant schizophrenia. It was quite moving.
It really brought home the human side of all this, the urgent need for faster progress in healthcare. He sees AI as potentially a massive accelerator for research, finding treatments, building applications, especially in areas where progress has just been painfully slow.
It was a powerful reminder of why this work matters so much.
Yeah.
And this urgency also connects to the FDA's role, right?
Yeah.
The panel seemed to acknowledge the FDA is moving towards more process-based, risk-based approaches.
They did. But they also highlighted the challenges companies still face right now, trying to navigate regulations with AI models that might be changing rapidly.
It's tricky when the tech iterates faster than the rules.
Yeah. And Rob mentioned Qualio's own work on continuous validation, for software in GXP environments, pharma, med device.
Right. Highly regulated software.
He talked about how complex it is to implement continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous validation in that space. It's something they've been working on with AWS, hoping to share what they learn.
So even the validation process needs to adapt to this faster, more continuous world.
It's a big piece of the puzzle for regulated industries.
Okay. Looking ahead then, what was the general feeling about, say, the next 12 months?
There was definitely a sense of excitement. Several things came up. AI helping hospitals become more efficient, more sustainable. The idea of startups innovating faster, maybe even failing faster, but learning quicker because of these tools. And AI playing a big role in managing all the data coming from home health monitoring.
Lots of potential areas.
And another interesting trend they discussed, more investment coming from VCs who don't traditionally focus on healthcare, tech VCs jumping in.
Oh, interesting. Is that seen as a good thing?
Generally, yes. The panelists saw it as a positive. More capital, potentially new ideas, maybe new distribution channels opening up through collaborations between tech and health companies.
But there must be challenges there too, right? Tech investors understanding the nuances of healthcare.
Absolutely. Rashna really emphasized that, the need for better communication, better understanding between the pure tech investors and the experienced health tech folks. She's actually involved in setting up forums for that kind of dialogue.
Smart, bridging that gap.
Yeah, to help create more practical investment strategies, because you have to understand how complex it is to actually integrate new tech into hospitals, into existing workflows. She shared that story about a hospital system advising startups to focus on smaller, bite-sized innovations first as a way to actually get adopted.
That sounds like very grounded advice. Start small, prove value, then expand.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's try and wrap up this deep dive on Rob Fenton's LSI talk. We've definitely heard a clear theme, the shift towards practical problem-solving AI in life sciences. It's happening.
Yeah, and a strong belief from the panel in AI's power to really accelerate things development, getting to market.
We also touched on the evolving regulatory picture is still complex and the growing influence of the wider tech world and its investors on healthcare.
So this deep dive hopefully gives you a shortcut to grasping these really key developments.
The main message seems to be AI in medtech isn't just theory anymore. It's here, it's being used, it's driving efficiency, creating new possibilities.
But with important things to keep working through around regulation and how to best integrate it effectively.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Given how fast AI is moving, what could the long-term shifts look like for our established healthcare models? And maybe more importantly, how do we strike that critical balance between pushing innovation forward quickly and making absolutely sure we maintain patient safety in this really dynamic environment?
Yeah. How might these trends affect your own work, your own areas of interest? Something to think about.
Definitely worth considering.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Compliance Conversations. We hope you enjoyed it.